It was essentially just my father, 50, and me after my 26-year-old mother died giving birth, with sporadic visits from my grandparents on both sides. I adopted a more manly aesthetic and set of preferences, akin to one of the lads, but the only boy I lived with was my father. For T-Rex, I was Rexy since I had an intense longing for him. He got me a few Barbies, but I was like, ew, and I had very few dresses or skirts. He also always did my hair in an extremely bad way. He started dating Maria when I was about 12. Maria had a 15-year-old daughter named Stacy. Maria was a wonderful person, but Stacy was awful. She teased me because I didn't look like a female should and because I liked things that were associated with men, like automobiles and bikes. I have to admit that, as a child, I didn't have many friends either male or female. My father was my person, and as I grew older, I became interested in his interests. To put it briefly, Stacy would frequently make terrible remarks about me being a male, a freak, etc. My dad would also make same remarks, but he would do so in a less aggressive manner, which affected me more because he was affirming that even though Stacy was his daughter, I was still his son. The fact that he referred to Stacy as Peach as Mario's princess while I was T-Rex crushed my heart. At 15, my appearance completely changed. I brought skirts and dresses and dyed a part of my hair a pretty pink, which made Stacy laugh even harder at me, and my dad said, "Whoa, pink, that's for girls." Then, on my 16th birthday, Stacy wrecked my entire appearance by putting black dye in my shampoo. It must have been the straw that broke the camel's back because I sobbed so hard that I had trouble breathing, and I told my dad what Maria and Stacy had been up to for all those years, along with my dad's terrible words and my subtle encouragement of Stacy's terrible statements. He ultimately decided to part ways with Maria and Stacy since it was clear that I would never be able to go back after that. After I turned 20, he eventually wed my now stepmother. My dad expressed regret, we had a conversation about it, and a year later, I started going to therapy until I was 24. I think it destroyed my connection with my dad in a manner that we will never be able to mend, which is why I don't want to discuss it. He doesn't have my back, I know that. He attempted to joke about it during our conversation yesterday, and I told him that I didn't want to think about it because I would never forgive him for supporting Stacy in her bullying. He said, "There's no way I could still be harboring animosity." I told him that he had broken both my heart and my confidence, and that I still will. He attempted to argue, but my stepmother told him to stop since my sentiments belong to me. He thinks I'm an idiot because he left them and made apologies with me, but I still cry when I think about it. Am I the foolish one? I appreciate your new stepmother. She's quite correct that your father must acknowledge that he caused irreversible harm to the bond. It would be like pouring salt on your wounds to force you to let it go. This kind of stepmother should be the lot of all children who have stepmothers. I'm confident that Op's mom will encourage him and give him a gentle prod if he starts to wallow in self-pity. If there's any hope that Op's dad will come to terms with the reality of his connection with his daughter. Op's mother-in-law seemed to understand. The fact that Opie and her dad went to therapy not long after stepmom became a part of the family seems like no coincidence to me. She undoubtedly urged the stepdad to look into that prior to his daughter, both during and after Stacy's bullying, as it exposed his own emotional abuse and neglect. It's you who is the fool. Your dad did everything he could to make apologies after realizing what he had done, including divorcing his wife, apologizing, and joining you in treatment. When will you be able to let him go? I believe that forgiveness is a critical first step towards healing, but your feelings are your feelings, and no one can persuade you to let them go. And isn't it about time your dad was forgiven? In the end, I believe Dad did have your back, as evidenced by his decision to divorce your first stepmother. Rebuilding trust is a really difficult task. Keeping a grudge is a good idea since it shows that you're conscious of the behavior that first harmed you and are taking precautions to avoid it from happening again. Having a grudge is a common way for people to minimize another person's experience and refusal to let it happen again. Let it go is probably just his way of indicating that he doesn't want to be reminded that his actions and comments destroyed their relationship and caused his daughter to suffer a breakdown. Furthermore, I don't think Dad left them for his daughter alone. What did Maria do to him, I wonder? I recently got married to Natalie, my wife. She immediately accepted and adored my preteen kid from my previous marriage when she first met him. Let me just state that, if we hadn't allowed this to proceed to the point of getting married, I was positive that my wife loved him and got along with him. She paid for 2 of his vacations, decorated his room when we moved into our new apartment, gave him, and still provides him, an allowance in addition to what I give him, and always makes purchases to show you how much she loves him. Her mother is a living saint, so the wedding planning went smoothly and drama-free. There were no problems at all, other than the fact that I discovered my mother had removed and altered my son from the majority of our wedding photos. I was initially in a state of disbelief, finding it hard to believe it was her and believing the stupid photographer was to blame. However, he informed me that he created her more copies and carried out this action per her request. I lost it and snapped at her, demanding to know what the whole story was. She stated coolly that she had wanted some pictures to be just of the 2 of us, which was nonsense because other family members weren't included in the pictures. She claimed that by making such a huge deal out of small changes, I was spoiling the honeymoon. She continued to show me the original copies with my son still included, but I couldn't help but become enraged because it seemed as though she was marginalizing him. She wanted to call my son to ask him to demonstrate that he doesn't really care after the disagreement got out of hand, but I told her not to do that and involve him. She attempted to phone my mother-in-law, but I chose not to risk our mutual respect being jeopardized by a dispute with her over it. I chose to cancel the remaining portion of the honeymoon reservation and simply return home after she texted me, stating, "My wife didn't mean to exclude my son, and I should know that as a bride, she must have felt overwhelmed, so I should be easy on her." She's been weeping nonstop over it, telling me that I'm treating her badly just because I want some pictures of her and me alone, and that I keep forgetting everything she's done for my son thus far. Am I the foolish one? Not the fool. Even if she had forgotten or anything, she could have asked for the photo of you 2 by yourselves on the wedding day if that was all she wanted. She could have had what she wanted with just 1 or 2 pictures, and she didn't have to remove your son from most of them. Opie, at last revealing her actual self. Defend your son. The first thing to do is to remove him from pictures. She edited your son and only your son out of group photos, and neither she nor her mother's justifications, wanting images of just the 2 of you or saying she was overwhelmed, can explain or justify this. Let this serve as a reminder that someone does not necessarily love their child simply because they pay for their acceptance. She doesn't. She's ready to spend a lot of money, but she genuinely wants to forget about him and the day you 2 became friends. You 2 merit better. You and your son. She didn't start excluding him until shortly after you were married. The majority wait a bit longer. That was a terrifyingly quick 180. She knew she had to get the marriage license, which is why she had been acting so civil towards him. Now that she has you, be prepared for her to schedule dates for the 2 of you on the weekends when you should be spending time with your son. Getting pregnant quickly forces you to prioritize your new child over your son. It will happen soon. I apologize that you were unaware of her actual nature until after the nuptials. An annulment can be made at any time. Opie, always choose your child. The photos won't be the end of this. For the past few months, my spouse and I have been playing squash once or twice a week. My buddy Rebecca recently joined us, and yesterday was their second game with her partner Joe. Since I've been playing for a lot longer than Joe, I played him twice and won both times. After the first game, I noticed that he was becoming a little irate, so I informed him that, given that it was just his second time, he was doing really well. However, I didn't let him win the second game either. After that, he was nasty and demeaning to Rebecca when they played because she wasn't as skilled. I asked them if they wanted to go for a walk with us in the evening after we came home, and they said they would, but Joe seemed to be in a terrible attitude. We took our customary evening stroll, which lasted for approximately an hour and a half. Joe was nasty to Rebecca on the way, yelling at her for not knowing where we were, etc. The following day, Rebecca was furious with me, accusing me of causing Joe's ill will by challenging him to a walk after I had defeated him twice. He took it out on her, therefore I shouldn't have emasculated him, she remarked. I advised her to end her relationship with Joe because, in my opinion, he is a moron and mistreated her. Rebecca claims that I was trying to emasculate Joe on purpose because I don't like him and that I had to know he would respond this way. Am I the foolish one? Not the fool. Joe is a giant idiot. And not just because an evening stroll and a game of squash threatened to undermine his delicate ego. The way he's attempting to turn this into a gender issue by claiming you emasculated him is also quite offensive. Does he believe that just because he's a man, he should be able to defeat you? Would he have been content to lose to you if you were a guy? Joe sounds quite insecure. By partially revealing the real character of this guy who views a dog walk as a competition, you did your friend a favor. Although I haven't played squash, I have played enough racquetball and tennis to understand that it's a skillful game. This individual undoubtedly believed that by hitting the ball harder than you, he could outperform you. What a bitter loser. Why is there a question at all? Joe was defeated twice by a significantly more skilled squash player. Apparently, the finest female athlete is still inferior than the worst male athlete in Joe's universe. You were correct to counsel Rebecca to end her relationship with Joe because he is abusive and insecure. Except for Joe, no one emasculated Joe. I'm a 45-year-old woman who has been a foster mother for the past 9 years. I've been taking care of the same youngster for 7 years, he's now a teenager. I attempted to adopt him, but it didn't work out because of his difficult birth-mother circumstances. Nonetheless, in every manner that counts, I regard him as my son. Though for shorter periods of time, I also fostered additional children. I reside in a 2-bedroom apartment with my son. There's a spare room that doubles as a guest bedroom, and we each have a room. My sister, 37, and her kid, who is almost grown up, moved in with us during the world crisis. Despite my sister's suggestion that the boys share a room so she can have her own, they have been using the guest bedroom. Since they were just going to be short-term visitors, I saw no need to alter my son's life in that way, and I refused to do so. I believe my sister thought she would be here forever because she hasn't been looking for a job or anything. I began fostering a young adolescent girl 2 weeks ago. The placement has a longer time frame. I informed my sister, a week before to her arrival, that she and her son would need to vacate their property within 30 days, as required by law for tenants. The 3 children can now share a room, according to sister, who begged me not to do this to her. It's not necessary for anything to change, we can both keep our own rooms. She stated that she and her son would stay in the same room, and that at least my 2 foster children could share a room. I answered, absolutely the heck not, that's ridiculous. I stated that it would be absurd and illogical to place a worried and nervous teenage female in the same room as a scared and anxious teenage boy. She begged me not to take this girl in while crying nonstop for a week. I stayed on the couch when this girl, my foster child, moved in, and I plan to stay there for another week until my sister and nephew move out. My foster daughter was weeping and my son was unhappy when I got home from work yesterday. They told me that my sister told them they were just foster children and that she and her nephew were family when I questioned them what had happened. The foster children will have to go, but the sister and nephew, will stay. I cracked up. I threatened to call the police and have my sister taken out if she didn't vanish on day 30, so I informed my sister to pack up her belongings in a week. She has been pleading with me to extend their stay and force the stepkids to share a room for a bit since she will be homeless if I don't let her and the boy stay. Not the stupid, it's absurd that your sister thought she'd let her stay after she caused pain to 2 defenseless teenagers. Yes, you will reconsider and allow her to stay if you threaten to expel the 2 foster children. And why had she done this? This is what she brought on herself. When she has intentions to take advantage of your generosity, don't allow her blame you for being homeless. If you let her stay, she will keep sulking off of you. In order to prevent her from trying to steal anything, make sure to change the locks, return your key if she has one, and stay behind after she goes. She is completely sulking and abusing OP's generosity. Although it was only meant to be a temporary arrangement, the sister's response gives the impression that she intended to remain forever and is upset that she was unable to change the locks. In any case, she looks like the kind of person who would create a copy before returning the key, so I wouldn't rule it out. You have nothing to do with her homelessness. The boldness of so many beggars always astounds me. It's as if you have no responsibility to ensure that your fully grown adult sister and her almost adult son have a place to live. It's a great gesture of kindness and morally correct, but once she acts and says things like this, well, then all kindness ends and you are left to sort out your own messy existence. When my brother and I were very small, our mother passed away. I'm a boy, 18, and I recently moved in with a friend. My brother is currently 20. Dad married Lisa, assisted in raising her 3 children, and went on to have 2 children of his own. In addition to having numerous complicated medical conditions, one of Lisa's children was diagnosed with a rare type of cancer 5 years ago. There was a severe lack of money. Lisa's mother is in a nursing home, so she was unable to assist, and my dad's family was less able to provide as much as our uncle, who used to give money to my brother and me for food and other necessities. A few years ago, our uncle told my brother and me that we had a savings account with money set up for education or a down payment on a house, and we would have access to it later. He informed us earlier about the money in case we needed it. My mother opened the account with money from a family business she was involved with. My brother and I split our mother's half of the firm when our grandparents sold it before they passed away. Then we added our inheritance from them. When my brother was able to buy a car, relocate off campus, and move into a large house for 3 college students, my dad found out about the money. When he inquired, my brother informed him that he had some savings. I informed him we had some money from our mother when he asked me directly about it. He went off on me, so I figured he had a good approximation, though I didn't tell him how much. He mentioned that we might have used some money when Lisa's child was battling cancer. He informed me several times that the situation was severe and that they were receiving food from charities since they were unable to pay for it. He questioned how we could have been so self-centered and whether we knew that we could have paid for a trial that they wanted Lisa's child to go through while she was battling cancer. He said that had we told him about the money, he may have used some of it to keep the rest of us safe and afloat, or perhaps to treat his stepkids' disease. It was all just me being egotistical. I feel awful about lying to my dad, so I have to find out whether he is correct. Simply put, my brother and I were looked after by our uncle, and it didn't feel right to use the money from my parents and grandparents to buy things for my dad's new family. When my mother passed away, my parents were in the midst of their divorce, and my dad and her relatives did not get along. Am I the foolish one? Not the fool. It wasn't the family's bank account. Your mother left you that money. Yes, it's unfortunate that they needed financial assistance, but you have no accountability or culpability for that. Did we realize we could have paid for some trial they wanted Lisa's kid to undergo altogether? I don't believe in trial medications. The free treatment is part of medical research. I think OP's father is lying and laying blame to get OP to give them money right away. Actually, participating in many medical trials is compensated. Children are not in charge of the family's finances, even if we assume everything he stated was true. They had the option to leave money to your dad in their will, but they chose not to. It's the father, to be honest, who is being self-centered here. Why is he making them feel guilty about this? Why does he not feel thankful for children? His children shouldn't feel bad for enjoying the love legacy his first wife left them. It wasn't her responsibility to provide for his second family. In addition, he most likely inherited anything from her as well, which he undoubtedly spent whatever he pleased.